from being the biggest hater of Linsanity to almost throwing hands with Kevin Garnett on multiple occasions. Here are some of Carmelo Anthony's biggest NBA beefs. Sure, the man may have retired, but you need to remember, Melo spent 19 seasons in the NBA. That's a really long time. Enough time to become a 10-time All-Star, a 3-time Olympic gold medal winner, the 2023 scoring champion, and definitely enough time to start rivalries, which Melo did a lot of. I mean, the man really picked a fight with Jeremy Lin over nothing. Well, not nothing. See, the 2012 season was a wild ride for the Knicks. Only problem was, Carmelo Anthony had nothing to do with it. Zero, zip, nada. It was the Jeremy Lin show back then, and boy did he inject some serious excitement into the team, even if it was for a brief period. But Melo, as we all know, wasn't the biggest fan of Linsanity. You know how moms always say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all? Well, someone should have reminded Carmelo of that, especially since he was raking in a cool 19 mil that season. When asked about Jeremy Lin and the whole offer sheet drama, Carmelo pulled out his classic "It's not up to me" line. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what he did when things got messy with Mike D'Antoni. But this time, it got even more heated. Melo took it a step further and decided to share his personal thoughts on the Rockets' contract offer to Lin by calling it ridiculous. Yikes. That was brave coming from one of the top 10 highest paid players that season. I mean, no disrespect, but sometimes it would have been better if Carmelo had just kept his lips sealed. Like, remember when he fought with a fan? That was completely unnecessary. Basically, Carmelo put out a tweet wishing everyone a happy new year, to which a Kicks fan replied, "How about you win a ring?" and went on about how hard it was to be a fan of Melo's. Now, Anthony obviously didn't take these comments very kindly, and retaliated by calling the fan a glazed donut face. Say what you will about this being unnecessary and all, but that was a sick burn. Unfortunately, it wasn't the only time Melo took it upon himself to put fans in their place. There's also that incident where he cursed out a heckler at MSG, though I do admit that this time it was a bit more deserved, but only a little bit. It happened when Anthony was walking off the court, following a home loss to the 76ers in 2014. A fan yelled, "Nice defense, Melo," to which he responded by very nicely telling the fan to go f themselves. Ouch. In another incident, he got into a verbal spat with hecklers sitting behind the Knicks bench, which was just plain ugly. Then another time, Melo told a Knicks fan to go ask James Dolan for his money back after the fan heckled him on the court. But Carmelo didn't discriminate when it came to roasting the hell out of people. He had a similar attitude inside the Knicks locker room. One classic example of this is when he tore into the entire team after a loss to the 76ers in 2017. And boy, they sure did a lot of that back then. But that's beside the point. So, after blowing a commanding 10-point lead in the dying moments of the game, Melo was not happy. He let loose on his own teammates, giving them an earful for their inability to close out the game. To make things even worse, Melo didn't even get a chance to touch the ball on that last play. Instead, Kristaps Porzingis decided to grace us with an unforgettable airball from the corner, which, of course, led to the Sixers speeding down the court for an easy bucket. Not exactly the way the Knicks had envisioned wrapping up the game. Because of this, poor Brandon Jennings had to endure an extra serving of Melo's wrath for not passing him the ball during the Knicks' final possession. When the dust settled and the media swarmed around him for post-game comments, Anthony didn't hold back. He declared the loss unacceptable, and you could practically hear the disappointment and frustration in his voice. Now, while it's easy to see where Carmelo was coming from here, there's no way you can justify the time he threatened to beat up Tim Hardaway Jr. In the middle of a brutal 9-game losing streak in 2014, tensions reached a boiling point on the Knicks roster. As the game clock ticked down, Hardaway Jr. couldn't contain his frustration and yelled, "Get the rebound!" directly at Carmelo. Well, that was enough to set off Melo's infamous temper, and he retaliated with a barrage of expletives, threatening to settle the score in the locker room after the final buzzer. And he kept his word. Shortly after the game, reports started swirling about Carmelo Anthony and Tim Hardaway Jr. coming dangerously close to throwing fists at each other. Now, no punches were exchanged, at least none that we know of. But according to NBA reporter Chris Broussard, the air was thick with yelling, arguing, and enough colorful language to make a sailor blush. About 2 years after his scuffle with Tim Hardaway, Melo found himself beefing with Slam magazine. See, at one point, Melo was a bona fide superstar, no doubt one of the top 5 players in the NBA. But as time went on, his star began to fade. So when Slam magazine placed him at number 15 in their 2016 rankings, you'd think he'd be appreciative, right? Well, Melo had a different idea. Instead of embracing his respectable ranking, our man went on a social media rampage, calling out Slam for daring to put him so low. And it was petty. Now, to be fair, Slam did acknowledge Melo's scoring prowess, stating that he could still get buckets with the best, but they also took into account the Knicks' lack of success. And that's where things went south for Carmelo in their rankings. Shortly after the rankings dropped, Anthony took to Instagram, firing off comments that questioned Slam's credibility. In one savage comment, he claimed that they'd lost all credibility by placing him at number 15. And just to add some extra spice, he threw in a messy "don't play yourself" while tagging Slam in the comment. But Melo's frustration was understandable. His time with the New York Knicks was quite the roller coaster ride. On one hand, he led the team to multiple playoff appearances, making some noise in the conference semifinals back in 2013. But on the other hand, he never quite saw eye to eye with Knicks president Phil Jackson. And surprisingly, it was all because of Melo's connections with Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Now here's the thing, Melo didn't have a lot of face-to-face interactions with Jackson. Most of their conversations were about basketball, specifically the infamous triangle offense. But guess what? Melo had already studied that offense in great detail thanks to his chats with Kobe and MJ. And that did not sit well with Phil Jackson. Things really started going off the rails in 2016 when Jackson started publicly taking shots at Melo. First, he openly criticized Carmelo for being a ball hog. Then, in February 2017, Phil took another dig at Anthony on Twitter, this time by referencing a Bleacher Report article. The two kept trading jabs, with Phil even claiming that the Knicks should trade Melo, right up until the moment he left in 2017. But no matter what these two said about each other, it never got quite as crazy as it did between Carmelo Anthony and Kevin Garnett. These two giants clashed multiple times when they were in the Western Conference. But when KG hopped over to Boston, it seemed like the tension was cooling down. They even became all-star teammates, and it looked like they were burying the hatchet. But in 2013, when they crossed paths in the East, the fireworks started all over again. The game was intense, trash talk was flying left and right, and things even got physical with some pushing and shoving. After the final whistle, Melo wasn't about to let things slide. He followed KG and tried to sort things out, man to man. Respect for addressing the beef, but did they have a heart-to-heart or a hoop-to-hoop chat? We may never know, but that isn't even the wildest part of the story. See, after the game, the internet exploded with rumors about KG's trash talk, and the one that took the cake involved a certain breakfast cereal. Yep, you heard that right. Allegedly, KG told Melo that his wife, the lovely Lala Anthony, tasted like Honey Nut Cheerios. Wow. Now fast forward to 2020, and Melo finally spilled the beans while having a chat with hip-hop artist Ludacris. He revealed that KG never mentioned cereal, or really anything about his wife, during the game. Talk about a cereal rumor, huh? Turns out, a blog post sparked this whole mess. No sources named, no quotes, just pure speculation. But that's pretty much how the NBA community rolls around. So, from almost throwing hands with Kevin Garnett on multiple occasions, to being the biggest hater of Linsanity, these were some of Carmelo Anthony's biggest NBA beefs.